If they can't hear, could you shut it off and try to fix it?
Yep.
Okay, we're going to call to order at 7:01 p.m. If everyone could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so I've taken attendance. Everyone is here with us today. The board has the minutes from January 6th and January 13th. I changed slightly the way the meeting minutes are done. It has all of the resolutions the board approves now, so you can see a full list of exactly what was adopted. But with that, I'll accept a motion how to move forward with those.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of the meeting. I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, the meeting minutes are approved. Next, we'll move to public expression. I remind everyone that public expression is an opportunity for individuals to comment on matters involving Newport other than those pertinent to public hearings that day. The time reserved for public expression is not a question and answer period. If you need to address a specific situation and do not feel comfortable speaking at the meeting, you may contact me directly. Speakers will be limited to 2 minutes. Is there anyone who would like to say anything? Okay, if not, we will move forward. First is monthly reports. I go first and I'll talk about what we've been doing. So in between the last town board meeting and this one, I've been working with different offices to implement some of the things that the board has approved in the past. One of those is our new accounting firm. It's Bowers CPAs and Advisor. We've been working to transition to them from our previous accountant, and they're up and running and have been starting to work on our books and everything. They're currently working on submitting the annual financial report to the comptroller's office, and they're hoping to be able to do that within the 60-day deadline that the comptroller's office sets. I'm also working with ADP, which is going to be the town's new payroll and human resources provider. It takes about 4 or 5 weeks to do the complete onboarding process with them. I've scheduled it out. We have all the meetings from now until near the end of March, but we're going to be able to start with them by the beginning of April. That's the start date. With that, we're going to have new payroll functions and procedures to make sure it's more consistent, and ADP is also going to help us create an employee handbook since the town currently doesn't have one. I also wanted to give an update on the comprehensive plan review process. The comprehensive plan committee met earlier this month and talked about the community engagement plan. So we sent out the comprehensive plan community survey. We're going to send that out, and we've sent out the employee one. So the goal with that is to collect feedback from the people who work here as well as residents to help inform the town's plans for the next 10 years or so. We also talked about the community profile part of the comprehensive plan, which is an assessment of the town's current conditions and where we currently are. That was made by a consultant that we hired and was finalized and approved at the meeting. So that's one of the first parts of the comprehensive plan that is finished. The committee also talked about a layout for the comprehensive plan itself and what that would look like. It talks about things like land use development, our long-term goals for technology improvements, land use development, and things like that. So if you're looking for more information about the comprehensive plan, you can go to that page on our website and feel free to attend upcoming meetings that will be posted on the website about that too. I also wanted to talk about our legislative adoption timeline. So last month at our meeting, the board approved the organizational analysis with general code, which highlighted the different things that the board is currently missing that New York State requires, as well as things that the state doesn't require, but that it would be good for the town to have. So I wanted to talk with the board tonight about the possibility of me making a schedule of different legislation that they could consider over time. So it's not all at once at the end when we adopt the final code, and then organizing that by topic. At our last meeting, you all agreed to the list of legislation that you wanted general code to help make drafts of. And I can go through that again if you need to. But I was thinking of making it separating out by month with the end date possibly being December of 2025 when we finish adopting. And then we'd send all of those to general code for them to put in the one code document. Does that approach sound okay with everyone?
Sounds good to me.
Is that okay, Josie? Patty, do you have any thoughts?
No.
Okay, so that's what we'll do with that. It will be a staggered implementation plan, so the board will have the ability to vote on each piece of legislation individually, so they don't feel they have to vote yes on something for it to be, so it won't delay the overall code. So that's what we'll do with that. We're also supposed to have a discussion with the engineer about the salt shed corrective action plan. He is at another meeting. He's supposed to come here soon. Once he joins the Microsoft Teams meeting, we'll circle back to that and talk to him. Since that is the end of my report, we'll move to the animal control officer. He talked about that he did not receive any calls this month, but he did still send in a report. We did not receive a report from the assessor. We did receive one from the codes department. He said that following his appointment in early January, all online forms have been updated with current contact information for the code zoning and event applications. All the updated forms have been posted and are in use, as well as hard copies made available at the town office. He also showed the below activity that took place during January. Permit 01/2025 is a placeholder, and the others are listed below. So if you want to see a full list of everything that's been done, you can look on the website, and our codes officer is here. Does anyone on the board have any questions for him about anything? No. Okay, we did not receive a report from the highway superintendent this month or the historian. The town clerk gave a report about fees collected in the month of January, which will be available on the website. We did receive a lengthy report from the planning board chair regarding the process taken for the slaughterhouse. Colleen isn't here with us today, but does the board have any questions about that they want to talk to her?
Not till I read through all this.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything to say about that?
I saw the paperwork that she did do for it. I think she was very thorough in what she did. I wish I had seen it earlier, and I think it could have answered a lot of questions. But I think it's still something that we should discuss with the board, that maybe we could have some more oversight or something of the planning board's decisions before the actual decision is made. Just to have some kind of input in here, what they have to say. But like I said, once I read the paperwork, you know, she did do a very thorough job of getting everything that she needed.
Does anyone else have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, the planning board has to bounce things off the board here. You can't just let them run and do whatever they want and not even keep us in the loop. You know, we didn't even know what was going on. And things get approved, and we need to know. So that's got to be changed.
And how do we do that?
Well, in 2022, the board passed a local law about the planning board having the ability to use special use permits. So that's part of the zoning ordinance. If the board wanted to rethink how that works with a local law, that's how you'd have to do that, to amend the zoning ordinance.
Let's get it done. And we have to be kept in the loop.
So we want to have the final say about a special
Well,
use
that's it,
permit.
yeah. I mean, if you want, absolutely. I mean, we have no knowledge.
Should have came to me. I agree with that, because I'm getting calls from people that supposedly, and again, I hate to hear one side of the story, but supposedly had adjoining property were not notified about the public hearing. Now, whether they were or they weren't, and like I said, I'm hearing one side of the story.
Of
so
the
I can't
slaughterhouse,
say.
you mean?
For the slaughterhouse, that they weren't properly notified. But whether they were or not, again, I hear one side of the story, so you gotta take it with a grain of salt.
There you go again, if we were in the loop, we would have been able to
Well,
confirm some of the things.
I'd like to think that we would make sure that the proper people were notified.
Right,
We've done it in the past, and I think we should be able to do it again in the future. And I do sincerely believe that we need to take back the authority of the planning board. Let them do the background work, let them make the recommendation. We'll have the public hearing, get input from the public, and have a final decision. Because there's still the opportunity to go to ZBA if you don't agree with what we think.
Okay. Does anyone else have any thoughts to share on that?
So how do we do that? When do we do it?
If the majority of you would like me to draft something for our next meeting, you'd have to have a public hearing or schedule that at our next meeting. You need the text of the local law to do that. But I could move forward with that if you would like to.
Yes,
well, move forward, I say.
okay.
Josie, do you have any thoughts?
Well, there's both sides to this story. I was someone, I wasn't a council person at the time. I was the clerk. And when this opportunity came up to give the planning board to make the final decisions, I disagreed with it. I didn't think it was a good move at that time because we're elected officials versus their appointed people. But they brought up a good point that they're the ones who have done all the work. They have done all the studies and stuff, and so they have more knowledge than anyone else to make a decision. So I'm not sure what the real answer should be. I still think the board should have some oversight, but again, do we really have the time to do all the work that they do? Or maybe we got to start when they have their public hearings. One of us has to go to the, we say, okay, this week I'll go, next week or next month Patty will go, whatever, and attend the meetings. Because I was upset, but once I read the paperwork and then it did show how much work they did to come to their conclusion, I really couldn't argue with it. So
The argument that I have is a statement was made at the last meeting. I asked, what reason did you use to override the county? Then I was told by the planning board chairperson, well, the county didn't have the proper documentation to make an informed decision, and she didn't think it was her responsibility to see to it that the county had it. Well, who the hell is it? It certainly is her responsibility to see to it that the county has the necessary documentation to make an informed decision. If they didn't have the necessary documentation, she should have supplied it before they made a recommendation. No, she did not.
Yes, you did.
She said she did not. She said it wasn't her responsibility.
The county interpreted it wrong.
That's what she said because they didn't have the proper documentation.
So they called USDA.
Well, why didn't she give them the proper documentation?
USDA had it straightened out.
Because they only give you a box this big.
Yeah, but it's an exempt USDA property. It says right in the thing that it's an exempt USDA type of an operation. So if it's exempt, what does the Department of Agriculture care about? The only people that are involved in it's going to be the Department of Health.
No,
That's according to what the documentation showed originally.
no, USDA controls it all.
It's an exempt USDA property.
Federal controls it.
It's an exempt ag and markets project.
And
So
that's
the
allowed.
only, according to what the paperwork said, all responsibility reverts to the public health department.
Well, they're out of it, 'cause the only way the health department gets involved in it is through the septic system.
I'm just telling you what the paperwork said.
And that, they don't have to have that involved in it at all.
Paperwork said it was an exempt eggs and market property. Therefore, all responsibility went to the Department of Health. So since the Department of Health is gonna be responsible for it, it's gonna revert back to the county, and the county Department of Health is gonna say, the county didn't recommend this project in the first place. You're gonna run into serious problems with that slaughterhouse. You know, how are you don't have access to electricity to pump excess wastewater up. You're gonna have a disposal site above ground disposing of animal parts. You may as well open up a zoo. You'll have every exotic animal known to mankind will be up there at the pit. I mean, you're causing all kinds of major problems here. And I don't think the thing should have ever been passed in the first place. And I think it goes right back, I don't care how much research work was done. Research work can slant it one way or the other way. As far as I'm concerned, it causes problems. And I think we need to take back the authority for the final acquisition as to who gets that permit. With a recommendation from the planning board, I agree to that.
Okay. The only other thing worth noting with that I would say is that last time when we talked about this, and the town passed a local law, the town attorney said that the way the town was doing it before was a very unorthodox way of doing it that he hasn't encountered in other towns. But if that's what you would like me to do, is look into that, then I can prepare something for our next meeting. Okay. Tiffany, do you have anything to share from the ZBA?
No, but I did send my report in. Oh, you didn't get it?
Yes.
Oh, no, I haven't had anything going on. And I don't think anything else is going on this month, so no.
Okay. Next is public hearings. I would like to wait to go to our resolutions until we have the opportunity to talk with the engineer. He said that the latest he thinks his other meeting will go is until 7:30. It's 7:18 right now. So we could move forward with the rest of the resolutions or recess until he joins the call.
Where's the other meeting?
It's at another village.
We can move forward with the other ones. I don't have a problem with that.
So Jennifer, if you could go to resolution 2025-40.
Who's Jennifer?
She's the administrator.
Marie said that. Marie brought to my attention a couple of weeks ago about the telephone company.
Mhm.
And I wonder if you could kind of go over that, what we're receiving from the new company and what the Newport Telephone was offering.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so in November, the board approved the use of a new telephone company. It's Intermedia Incorporated. They're a VIOP phone system, which is a cloud-based use instead of the current Newport Telephone Company calls we use, which are dialogue. So the purpose in moving forward with the new company originally that you guys decided in November was that one, it was cheaper, and it also allows the different town department heads to have access to town phone extensions and remote calling capabilities when they're not on site. One of the problems that the town has had for a while is that people have used their personal cell phones to do town business. When you get into things like foils and call logs, people looking at that, it can be hard to create a separation between personal use and professional use. So that was one of the things. The other reasons for moving forward with that phone company, at least my understanding, was the cost. Right now we have the town clerk has a phone system, the justice has a phone, highway has a phone as well. With the new phone system, we'd be able to get the same those things, but for a lower cost, and also have phone lines for the supervisor, the codes department, assessment department, and animal control. The goal of it is that it's a lower cost and it helps us move away from people using their personal phones. I understand maybe a counterpoint to that is that Newport Telephone Company is a local business that we've had a relationship with for many years, but they just don't provide the same services. If we were to continue moving forward with the new phone company, we would still get our internet from Newport Telephone Company, but we wouldn't do the phones with them. One thing to note that didn't go as planned from when you voted on this, which is why I sent an email to you all about it, is that originally the new phone company thought they were going to be able to pour over our existing phone numbers, but they're not able to do that. So we'd have to get new phone numbers for the town. That would impact the town clerk, highway, town court, and the history center, but it wouldn't impact the new phone lines that we'd be creating. In the long term, I think the additional services the new phone company provides would outweigh the short-term impact of having to shift phone numbers, but that's just my opinion and why I wanted to talk about it again.
What's the difference in savings?
Yeah, so right now with Newport Telephone Company, I don't have the exacts in front of me, but I think we spent about 2,100 for those phone lines. And to have I think it's 8 phone lines with the new one, it's lower than that cost. So,
Nathaniel,
yes.
if we didn't change any service, and the new company provided exactly what Newport Telephone is providing, what would the cost difference be? New company cheaper or more expensive? The same service that we have now.
So the new phone company doesn't offer the same service because they're a cloud system. So whenever you work with them, you have all of those things automatically. But the base rate wouldn't change at all. I think it's $23 a month per phone.
How does that work? I mean, where are these phone lines? I'm not.
Yeah, so it's
cloud, so.
Yeah, it's a cloud, so it's not a traditional, like you hook it up to the Ethernet line. So it operates over the internet. So like an example with Matt, with the codes department, with the new phone system, he's able to download an app on his existing phone, so the town doesn't have to have the cost of buying a physical phone for him. So he can log on to his town's phone number with his personal phone, but do all of his town work through that town phone number. Does that make sense?
Well, to me, probably not, because I don't do that stuff, but, yeah, so. That's
You're in the
okay.
crowd, Katie.
I'm not I'm in the cloud, but I'm not that cloud.
So I think it makes sense to continue moving forward, just when we think about wanting to modernize and move people to professional devices. I think that makes sense. But I understand maybe the desire not to as well. So
Well, I think the biggest problem I had with it is just that Newport is local, and they have serviced us for 75 years and stuff. I guess I hate to see that go. Anytime we've had any problems or anything, they're right there. It's just like Snyder. I know
I
when
was
we
thinking the same
had
thing.
the fuel bill, he wasn't always the cheapest, but he knows us. He's here whenever we needed him and stuff. So that means a lot too. But I understand where you're coming from. If we're going to move forward, modernize, and slowly take us dinosaurs and hand feed us the information, I guess we probably can learn it, and how to use it. I don't know. I guess maybe it's more the relationship that I'm missing with Newport versus what's actually best for us. So maybe I better concentrate on what's best for us.
yeah, I mean, that's how I thought about it too. And we'd still be getting our internet through Newport Telephone, but I want to be mindful of everything. So that's why I wanted to talk to you about it again.
Yeah.
Thanks
Well,
for reminding me, Joe.
I like the idea of staying with Newport Telephone, however, they just don't provide the service that we're looking for. I want to know also, how is this going to affect emails? And as we discussed, we're going to start collecting emails so we can notify people quicker and easier.
Yeah, so the emails is separate. We get that through Microsoft. And our subscriber list that helps residents get notifications about things is with our website, so it doesn't impact that.
Have we started collecting emails?
Yeah, there's 56 people subscribed to the notifications right now, the main list. And I'm gonna post about it again on Facebook to hopefully get more.
Are we going to start putting a sheet out? So
Yeah, I can do
anybody
that.
comes? You know,
Yeah, I can
it's
get
just
it.
quicker and easier to notify everybody if something's going on, right? With one button, the group goes out to the town.
Okay.
So what does that do for John? The new phone system?
One of those things.
That's what I thought.
Which is
Or me
fine.
either.
It not only doesn't do a thing with me, it's fine with me. So, I mean, I believe that you need the phone system. Unfortunately, Newport doesn't offer what, I hate to say it, a more modern corporation, but that's exactly what it is.
Right.
You know, and I've
Which is,
done business with Newport Telephone Company as long as I lived in the village of Poland, so it's not like I want to throw them under the bus. But I tend to go along with what Nathaniel is saying, that it isn't necessarily getting us into the 21st century, but at least it's the opportunity for individual department heads to have access to a town phone line without physically giving them a phone. Plus, it does offer other services that, you know, I guess the newer systems are much more reliable. I like a soup can and a string of wire.
And if we did have a problem with the phones, I mean, where are they located that they could come to check things out?
They have different sites throughout the country because they're a larger corporation. But a lot of the things, when things go wrong, they have remote access capabilities. So they could like take control of one of our computers and help you figure out the problem.
I mean, like Tom Lindsay used to come over like for our computers and straighten things out, physically come.
The modern thing, I still do the credit union, and we use a thing called e-ball, or it's called Team Player. And they can, you know, we do business with a company in Buffalo.
And they can,
You simply call on the phone, give them a code number, they log on to your system, and they do everything for you. Or at least they will instruct you on how to do it, but normally I tell them, you go ahead and do it, you make the mistake.
Okay, so what would you like to do? Do you want to stay with Newport Telephone or move forward with the provider you chose in November?
I guess in the future, if Newport did offer it at some point, we could look at it again, you know, or something like that. But right now, if they're not capable of offering that,
Sounds like we have to move forward.
Okay, Patty and John.
Move on.
yeah, whatever.
Okay. Okay, so we'll go to resolution 2025-40 again, since Brendan's still not in the Microsoft team. So,
One more question, excuse me.
yes,
Who'd you say that lady is over there? sitting there?
that is Jennifer Baker. She's the administrative assistant to the supervisor. She started last month. So she's helping make sure the online stuff is running. So we've gotten feedback from that before.
did you know that?
I saw her, I saw the young lady over there.
Oh, well, I didn't know who she
I
was.
saw her come in.
Okay,
First I thought she was gonna be a complainer.
so did I. That's what I thought. She's sitting in the
No.
corner. Okay, hi.
Okay, 2025-40 is a resolution to adopt the retention and disposition schedule for New York local government records. This is something that New York State requires us to have and is something General Code made us aware of. So if you could go back one resolution. So this is something that gets updated by the state regularly each year, I think. This resolution just adopts what they adopt. So it's called the Retention Disposition Schedule for New York Local Government Records, LGS-1. It's issued as part of Article 57A of the Arts and Cultural Affairs Law. It contains the legal minimum retention periods for local government records, as well as other standards the town has to follow. So
We have to make a, I'll make that motion to
okay.
accept that.
Is there a second?
I'll say.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, resolution 2025-40 is adopted.
Do you know what the retention is? How long we have to?
I think it's 7 years.
7.
But for some records, like the codes department ones, you have to keep them forever.
Well, it's like payroll record. You have to keep payroll records for 50 years.
Yeah. So it depends on each, but the standard records, I believe, is 7.
Mhm.
Okay, so resolution 2025-41 is authorization to apply for the New York State Local Government Records Management Improvement Fund. So this fund is something New York State offers to local municipalities to help them keep track of their records and make better systems for hosting them. So I think that we should apply for this fund. It's a relatively low amount of work compared to other grants. I think it's something that I could do with Marie on our own. And what this would allow us to do is to get a records inventory. Right now we have some of our records over there. There's some in my office, there's some in Marie's office, there's some in the highway department, and we have some digitized. If we won this grant, we'd be able to have a professional come in and sort all of the records and docket number them to make sure that we have them organized and that they can be found easily when someone from the community wants to look at them or a staff member wants to look at them.
This isn't guaranteed. This is something you apply for.
Yeah, you apply for it. We may or may not get it. But the long term of this would be is to eventually apply for grant money to do the records room extension that we've talked about before. But in order to apply for a records room, you need an inventory of your records. So we need to do that first. So this resolution just authorizes me to submit a grant. It's no financial obligation to the town.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2025-41.
A second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
It's 7:30, you wanna wait for
Jennifer, is he here yet?
Well, right on, 42.
the engineer.
If you click on people up there, it should show. Okay.
Everybody's gonna be happy because we finally have a face on there.
You say people, there it is.
Resolution 2025-42 is a determination on the Cuyahoga Valley Ambulance Fund, Ambulance Corps Fund ending increase request. Last meeting, representatives from the Ambulance Corps came to visit the town board and talk to them about the decision to decrease the amount to $40,000 for this fiscal year. The Ambulance Corps has requested that the town either match what they requested or somewhere in the middle. I told them that we would talk about this again since we didn't make a formal decision after their presentation. But this is something I wanted you all to discuss. There's options we could take to transfer funds within the existing budget. We would have to identify those. It's also important to note that the board can't make budget transfers until after February. So you could direct an approach on this. You could say maybe you want to transfer funding from a different budget line. You want to wait to see what the sales tax returns from the state are moving throughout the year, and that we may think about this again based on that. Or you could say that you want to stay with what you decided in November and leave it the same. But ambulance services is something that's important to the community. I think this is something you all should discuss and share your opinions on.
Yeah, one of the gentlemen called me, I forget his name,
Me too.
and,
Yeah, not that amazing.
you know, unfortunately, and I'm not saying it's unfortunate, but of all the other towns that they represent, the only town that didn't approve what they had requested was Newport, and Newport actually uses the service more than any of the other towns, basically because we have an older population. So Newport is the primary user of a voluntary ambulance corps. And it provides an outstanding service. I've used it. I know what kind of people they are. I know how compassionate they are. I know how understanding they are. If you were in a situation where you couldn't pay the bill, they could care less, which I'm not necessarily saying that's right, wrong, or indifferent, but that's just the way they are. They're more community oriented than, some of the major ambulance corps. The other problem that they're running into is Prospect Ambulance is going to discontinue their service, which means they're going to have more calls. They'll probably pick up some funding from maybe some of the other towns that they would be servicing. Whether or not Prospect opts to use Cuyahoga, you don't know. They might want to go with Boonville. But I think basically because Newport uses their service more frequently than any of the other towns. And all the other towns appropriated the funding that they asked for. Now, I don't feel comfortable with giving them $10,000, which would be the difference between what we gave them in the budget as opposed to what they wanted, which was $49,500. The way I was led to believe they would be satisfied with half that, which would be the same funding that was appropriated for 2024. But my recommendation is to try to find $5,000 currently. You can't make any transfers till March. At least Nathaniel could call or Josie could call the deputy and let them know that we have appropriated X amount of dollars. Unfortunately, we can't send them a check until sometime in March or April.
I'd have to agree with that. I mean, it's one of those things that if you have it and don't need it, that's great. But if you have it, if you don't have it and need it, well, that's not so good. So I think it's something that's absolutely necessary that we have. And cost of everything has gone up, so let's find some money and keep that going.
So is our increasing our amount to them going to sink the ambulance? I mean, you're saying if we don't have it or
Well,
we
it's
do have
gonna,
it?
it's gonna significantly curtail the type of service that they can render because they depend on that much funding for staffing purposes.
Well, maintenance too.
Maintenance,
Right.
staffing.
I still want to know what the other towns.
Is the town of Newport, do we use it the most because we have the most people?
No, it's because we have the older population.
We must be though one of the bigger.
Well, we are one of the larger towns.
Right. I'm wondering if the other towns are paying in the same proportion we are.
I believe when they originally applied, they gave us a percentage of usage for each of the towns. And Newport was the highest user of the ambulance corps. Basically, we asked them what was the reason for that. Were we accident prone or what? And they said, no, it's because we live in an area where the population is aging. People fall, break their hip. I fell, I didn't break my hip, but I can't wear a wallet for a few weeks. So I mean, I did use Cuyahoga ambulance twice. Once when my wife fell, and once when my wife passed away. Unfortunately, when she passed away, Cuyahoga was when they had the Remsen Barn Fest, and they were tied up at that. They had a call up there, so I had to use Prospect. Prospect didn't know how to get here. They called the fire department, and normally the fire department will not respond with the ambulance, but because I live in a village and I know most of the people in the fire department did escort Prospect ambulance to my house so that they could find it. I know the services that's rendered by Cuyahoga is excellent. I know many of the people that then most of us do know the people that are affiliated with it.
I've used it and my insurance paid for my bill.
Yeah,
So-
it did, it did
Right,
rise.
not
It
everybody,
does.
right. not everybody
Unfortunately,
has that.
there's an awful lot of people there's an awful lot of people in, I mean, I hate to single out the town of Newport, because it isn't only the town of Newport, but in the county of Herkimer, there's an awful lot of people that are on public assistance.
Right,
And unfortunately, when you're on public assistance, I mean, maybe, the Blue Cross Blue Shield is gonna pay $1,500 for an ambulance call. Medicare might give them 500. You got the same cost as you would have with Blue Cross Blue Shield. It still costs $1,500 to run that ambulance, even though they only got 500. And there's really no way to go back and recoup the extra $1,000. You can't get blood out of a stone. So if you attempt to sue somebody that's on public assistance, which you're wasting your time and your money, you might as well just cough it up as a bill that's not gonna get paid. And
Right, it doesn't-
unfortunately,
right,
and
right.
unfortunately, what happens is they eat that. But I don't think 5,000 is unreasonable.
I don't
I
have a-
will say one thing, what I would like them to do, and I understand, and I think we should look at doing the same thing. If the cost of living goes up 2.5%, 3%, the cost of everything that they buy goes up 2.5% and 3%. So we pretty well automatically need to look at every year, you're gonna have a 2.5% or 3% minimum increase in what they're requesting. I mean, I think that's just something, that's a fact of life.
Okay.
I think they should come, I think Nathaniel asked them to start coming in and making a plan, like a 5-10 year.
It's a great idea. I agree with that. I think,
And try
and
to
I
do
think I
that.
would like to meet with them and say, listen, we'd like a 5-year projection. Where do you think you're gonna be in 5 years? What do you think you're gonna need? Are you gonna need a new ambulance?
Sure.
Right.
You know, ahead of
You
time.
know, at least it gives us a heads up.
Right,
Now, Patty, do you have anything?
Well, I like the sales tax returns, seeing what we have before I give them money now, in February.
Yeah, the board transfer, we'd have to take that from somewhere else. I can look into that. I think maybe we can do that as a first plan. If it seems infeasible to do that, then maybe we can look at sales tax. I do think, though, in the long term, that the board needs to have a multi-year plan with them to talk about funding increases or projected funding increases. Obviously, things can change. Maybe we can address that on a case-by-case basis if that happens. But we need a plan to be able to enable us to plan our budget and our long-term financial plan, as well as for them to do that. I think not having a plan like that is hurtful, especially since the town.
I think they would be willing to do that.
Yeah,
I think
they
they'd be
are.
willing to sit down.
I talked to them about it.
and say,
We just discussed that with them, right?
Yeah, this is what-
Another problem is that the town has used ARPA funding the last few years to fund most of the ambulance. So that was one of the things you all struggled with at the budget.
That's where you
conversation.
run into a problem. We had COVID funds, so instead of taking it out of basically the general fund, they took it out of the COVID fund. So all of a sudden now there's no COVID funds. The well ran dry, so now it's got to come out of the general fund. But I'd like to give them a notice that we're willing to give them 5,000 up front, and maybe look at maybe another 2,000 or 3,000 if the sales tax revenue looks like it's attractive. Whether it will or not, I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know what people are buying now.
Okay. So just
I'm gonna make a motion that that we appropriate $5,000 to be donated to the volunteer ambulance corps.
okay.
And it can't be done till March.
Yeah, what we'll have to do is I'll have to look into which budget lines could potentially be moved, and you'll vote on the actual transfer next month.
Okay.
But is there a second for John's
Yes, I
motion?
will second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Me,
Okay.
And I'd like you to do me a favor, either Josie or you, would you call that Jim and just tell him that we did appropriate, now we need to find out where we're gonna grab the money from,
Yeah.
just to let him
we're
know,
appropriating 5,000.
to give him heads up.
Okay, next is resolution 2025-43. This is authorization to pay the general fund bills.
I'll make a motion, we approve resolution 2025-43. I don't have the dollar amount.
Vouchers 19 of 40, $27,189.62.
$27,189.62 covered by vouchers 19 through 40.
Okay, is there a second?
Yes, I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, next is resolution 2025-44. This is a resolution authorizing the payment of the highway fund bills.
I'll make a motion, we approve resolution, wait a minute, 2025-44 in the amount of $12,796.51 covered by vouchers 15 through 21.
Is there a
So,
second?
wait a minute, is that amount right?
No,
That amount can't be right.
12,648.18?
yeah,
Well, mine's crossed off and changed.
It's $12,796.51.
What was the dollar amount?
This one.
$12,796.51 covered by vouchers 15 through 21.
Is there a second?
796.
796.
Okay, is there a second for that motion?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, resolution 2025-44 is approved. Jennifer, is Brendan in the Teams meeting? Okay, what I would like to do is ask for a brief recess so I can call the engineer to see when he will be joining.
I'll make a motion, we have a brief recess. I need a cigarette.
Okay, so is there a second? All those in favor? Aye. Okay, we'll be back in 5 minutes.
I'll join you.
5 minutes? What do you?
Okay. So Brendan, could you say hello to the board?
Hi guys, sorry for the technical difficulties.
Okay, so Brendan, could you give a little bit of an overview of the email you sent to the board at our last meeting? Then they're going to ask you some questions about the different options.
Okay. Yeah, so basically our findings show that the poles were spliced during construction. It looks like the engineer gave the contractor a recommendation for how to repair the splice. It wasn't even closely done to what was recommended. So that's why it failed at those splice points. I see two options to fix it now. Option one would be to, you could take that wall down entirely and construct a new concrete wall in its place, which would be the stronger, longer life option for the fix. A little more wear and tear on it as far as if the guys hit it with a loader or something like that. Or we can come up with some repairs to essentially fix that splice and restabilize that splice point so that it might not, we might not be able to straighten it out and get it to look perfectly straight, but it will hold, and, it should be at least a, 20-year plus fix to at least keep the thing from moving and getting worse. It's the gable end of the structure, so it's not holding up the roof per se. So I'm not worried about it being a threat as far as a safety threat. But it's more so just to repair the thing and get as much life out of it as you can. For a wood salt shed structure, and that would probably be my recommendation, rather than spending all the money to have a new concrete wall, only on one side of a wood structure, and then 20 years down the line you have to replace the rest of the wood structure. So I think just maybe getting the life out of it that you can for now. But that's just a thought.
Okay, does anyone on the board have any questions about this?
Yes, if we went with the, which I don't think we will, but the concrete reinforcement or replacing the wall with concrete, is the footing substantial enough to hold that? Or do we know that?
What we would probably do, because the way that was built is there's basically just a footing under each of those poles. It is a pretty wide footing, so it's got a decent amount of bearing on it. But my fix would probably include excavating down to those existing footings, cutting off the existing poles, and then just pouring a new stripped footing on top of those existing footings. So they would just be set underneath a new strip footing that would probably be 5 feet wide, in depth, as far as the depth of the salt shed building, to retain it from keeping it from overturning. So it'd be plenty sufficient to keep the thing from overturning at that point.
Okay, follow up, Curtis, or no?
No. I'd like to know if the footings are what they are on the plans. Is that what we actually
Yeah,
have
that's,
there?
I'm only going off of the plans that I was given. So my assumption is that it was built per plan. But we don't know that. I have a little bit of concern about, I know those ATS wooden salt shed structures, they've been around forever. And they've always used wood posts that are stuck in concrete, which is how that was designed. Those poles that go down and the diagonals are just basically poured into those footings. Slight concern that pressure treated lumber isn't what it was 20, 30 years ago, how that connection is going to hold up. But again, that's not just an issue on the back wall. That's going to be an issue all the way around. So, you know, again, like, you know, do you spend the money to fix one wall and then 20 years down the line have to do the other walls or new salt shed?
Does anyone else on the board have questions for Brendan? Josie, yeah.
What about the lighting in there that's supposed to be in there?
Yeah, I think it should be added for sure. I don't see that it was on the plans originally, but I think that's an easy fix, and I think it should be added.
Agreed.
I don't think it'd be such an easy fix.
Well, you guys need lighting up there, right?
Say that again?
Yeah, Brendan, I think one of the things the board was curious about last time was the cost or estimates of a projection of a cost for each option. I know you said the concrete one is 3 times the other, but could you put that in context a little bit?
Yeah, so if I were just like rough numbers, 40 times, give me a second while I'm just running some numbers quick to see if I could rough out what I think it's going to cost. Probably going 50, 800. You know, I would think you could get somebody to come in there and shore it up for 20 grand or less. I imagine the concrete wall would cost you 50, 60. It's just my rough ballpark.
You over 70,000 for concrete.
Over 70?
Put steel beams in instead of wood. More orders.
Does anyone else have questions for Brendan?
Would you be able to figure out the cost for lighting?
Yeah, I could get a cost estimate for that. I mean, and I could put together a quick little drawing for you guys, and you could give it to the local contractors. I'd have to look. I'm not remembering off the top of my head because I don't have the pictures in front of me if there's power nearby, or if we have to go all the way over to the highway garage to tap out of that.
I think we did, that's why we did.
Yeah, did they put power in that when they put the building up?
I don't think
I don't think so.
They didn't put no conduit in the ground?
I don't think so.
I didn't think so either. And as far as like site lighting, is there a light on that pole that's out there? I don't think so. No, there's a utility pole that's kind of close to the salt shed, but I think that just has a feed on it that feeds the house across the street.
Yeah, there's no light on that.
So we'd have to run power from out back, probably by the generator, back behind the building all the way around. So I could put together a quick little sketch and ask a couple of local guys to see if they could give you a ballpark number on it.
Okay. The bottom line is the building has to be safe. We don't want anybody getting hurt now.
Sure. Yep. Yeah, and the lighting will help because, it's probably hard for the guys to gauge the pile without the lighting.
Right. Yeah, I think so.
Any other thoughts from the board?
Well, you can have some old industrial light.
When we looked at it,
You use the same light.
like it was blowing.
Yeah, one of the council members asked if the other walls are secure.
They're around $2,000.
They don't show us any signs of issues. They look like they're solid and they haven't moved.
So I guess one final thing, if the board doesn't have any other questions, is that we have our codes officer here. Do you have any questions or thoughts, Matt, about it?
The recommendations that are being given seem in line with what I would expect.
Okay. So does the board want to go with the concrete option or the other option, or look into other things to
I
solve
think
it?
you better go with a repair work done properly. With wood, 2x6s and fastened according to the way the original recommendation was done. Which I'm surprised that the codes guy who was acting as the codes guy at that time signed off that project when that work was not done according to what was recommended. And it wasn't Matt, so I'm not saying anything about Matt. He wasn't even involved in it. But I'm just saying that, you know, that's something that should have been looked at and done correctly when the recommendation was made.
Yeah, and I don't know who you guys had for the clerk of the works on it. If if you had an engineer on hand for the clerk of the works, for who should have signed off on that. But the repair detail that I got that I think was provided by the ATS engineer. It clearly showed they were supposed to put at least sandwich it with a 2x6 on either side, and they were supposed to nail it with a certain nailing pattern. And that's not what happened. There's 2x4s on the side with a couple of decking screws in it, and so it didn't stand a chance.
Why did it bust out? What happened?
One of the council members asked why the back wall side is bending outwards.
So what they, instead of putting basically the recommended repair was from the engineer was to put two 2x6s on either side of the break area for a certain distance above and beyond where the split was, and then to nail it with a certain nailing pattern. And what got installed instead were two 2x4s, with smaller boards for one on either side, and it was installed with far less fasteners, and it was installed with screws instead of nails, which screws don't have the shear strength that nails do. Or what I probably would have recommended as a repair would have been to use timber lags. That just, they grab much better, and they've got more, they're more substantial. So it just was, insufficient work by the contractor.
In his opinion, why did it happen? Why did it bust out?
I think because it wasn't repaired properly,
Why did it need to be repaired?
because it fell down.
Why?
I guess from what I've been told, the repair need was because the contractor had installed all the posts, built the walls, and was setting the trusses on the roof, and did something incorrectly, and all the trusses fell down. And when the trusses fell down, they broke the posts on the back side. And rather than making them replace the posts, they came up with this repair fix that didn't get done properly.
Which they should have made and tear it down and build it right away. The second, when it after it fell, that's the way it should have been done.
Okay.
Okay, anything else for Brendan? Or do you feel you understand better now?
So basically 20,000 for the estimate.
If you were to go with the
Well,
first
that's not
option.
counting the lighting.
Right, not counting the lighting.
Repairs. Okay.
Make sure that the bill that the estimate comes through separated between the repair and the lighting in case we need to litigate some, so that it's not all combined.
Yeah, well, since it's over, I think $10,000, we have to bid it out anyway. So we'll have to go through
Yeah,
that
I'll have
process.
to help you get what I'll do is I'll give you some drawings and a brief little bidding document so that we can bid it out legally.
Okay.
Good.
All right. So unless anyone else has any questions, I'd like to thank Brendan for calling in to talk with us. And have a nice rest of your night, Brendan.
All right, thanks, guys.
Yeah, bye. Okay, so we'll go back to the first resolution then. Resolution 2025-37. This is a determination on the salt/sand shed corrective action approach. So Brendan talked about the two different options. Do you guys have a clear understanding of what you'd like to do now?
Well, I'm not gonna go with the concrete. Concrete's the best way, but the back wall would outlast all the rest of them.
The wood repair. Well,
And he feels if we repair this, that we should get a good 20 years out of it.
That is what he said.
Nate, ask him about putting beams, steel beams up. They'll take the strength You won't have no problems whatsoever. Because that back wall is gonna take the pressure when you're pushing it.
Okay, I will ask him about that.
Yeah, figure the prices out, because you're gonna need 4 of them on.
Well, you gotta go with what the engineer recommended.
Yeah, but it's gonna be stronger.
Well, we'll see what the engineer says. So I think the step 4 would be asking the engineer to produce a bid document for you all to look at and send out next meeting. So
For repairs.
would someone like to make
For
a
the
motion?
repairs and the electric.
Yeah.
Both sides, and the rear wall of the salt.
Would someone like to make a motion to do that?
I'll make a motion, we approve resolution 2025-37 with the recommended repair work being the wood structures and the proper nailing as opposed to the.
Okay, is there a second for that?
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Right.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, resolution 2025-37 is approved, and I'll talk to Brendan about next steps. The only other thing we have to do is the monthly financial statements. The board have reviewed the financial statements, and you can make a motion on how you'd like to proceed with those. That's not a resolution, it's just part of my report, but since we went off.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the financial statements as prepared.
Okay, is there a second?
Yeah, it's all.
All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Okay, does anyone have any announcements to make? If not, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion on the adjourn.
And I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. We'll adjourn at 8:15 p.m.